The Politicrat Daily Podcast online store is hotting up with more items to choose from. On your travels to the store at the-politicrat.myshopify.com, you will find 66 and counting. 66, at least 66 different products, all designed by yours truly. So come one, come all, to the Politicrat Daily Podcast online store at the-politicrat.myshopify.com. Really good stuff there. I think you'll love it. So get ready to go and have this great experience online. Bye now. Thank you very much for your support. Welcome to the Politicrat. I'm Omar Moore. It is Thursday, February the 11th, 2021. On this edition of the Politicrat, are you the same person you were 10 years ago? Or have you changed quite a bit? It is Thursday, and often on social media, particularly Twitter, there's something called Throwback Thursday. Throwback Thursday typically involves a recollection of an event or some kind of thing that took place in one's life or in the world at a particular time in the past. It could be recent or it could be years back. And I think that it was a good idea to do this today. I'll also talk briefly about day 2 of the impeachment trial, or really what was actually the first day of presentations of argument, as we start and are going on through day number 3, 2, whichever. All of that is to say that this is coming up next.
Trump supporters began their assault on our Capitol. Radio communications from the Metropolitan Police Department highlight how during and following President Trump's speech, Trump supporters descended on the Capitol and became increasingly violent. What you are about to hear has not been made public before.
Multiple Capitol entries! Multiple Capitol entries!
1318.
A 12 to 50, we're coming around from the south side.
Be advised the speed ended.
Intel 1, be advised, you got a group of about 50 charging up the hill on the west front, just north of the stairs. They're approaching the wall now. They're starting to dismantle their reviewing stands and throwing metal poles at us. Cruiser 50, give me DSO up here now! DSO! Multiple law enforcement entries! DSO, get up here! Alright, we're 30 seconds out. We need some reinforcements up here now. They're starting to pull the gates down. They're throwing metal poles at us. Cruiser 50, DSO, get up here! Okay, we're here. 12 to 50, we're here.
That was Delegate Stacey Plaskett yesterday. During the impeachment trial, she is one of the House managers, and she is the representative delegate for the Virgin Islands. Welcome back. Brevity, they say, is the soul of wit. And I don't know if I have a lot of wit today or any other. I shouldn't be so hard on myself. But I do want to say hello and how are you on this Thursday? And yeah, there's lots going on, isn't there? Isn't there always lots going on, whether it's in your own life or whether it's in the world beyond your own life? And we all swim through these hours, and we all swim through this life, and hopefully we gain something from it. Hopefully experience is one of those things. We learn, we fall, we get scarred a little bit, we get up, or try to get up, and then if we get up, we keep pushing. And that's the struggle of life, isn't it? You know, death is a part of life too. I mean, we've seen this in our own families, friends, or whomever you know. You may have lost someone that you really care about in your inner circle, in your family. You know, goodness gracious me, it's been a trying time, and this is part of life, isn't it? You know, someone that you really care about in your family or a friend or whomever, you know, spouse, partner, and these are some trying times, aren't they, for all of us in any number of different ways that we are experiencing struggles here, struggles there. Hopefully there is some kind of light at the end of a tunnel for you if you are going through something at this moment that's really difficult. Of course, there are ways to seek help and assistance. And, you know, this is just one of those challenges that we face and try to navigate. And sometimes these challenges are more than just a challenge. They're really lifetime things that we go through and are experiencing. And there is help to be found. I do want to say this because it's really important to say this. If you find yourself in any difficulty at all, and I'm talking now about domestic violence in particular, and I need to have another conversation in the near future with Paula Gomez-Storti, who I spoke with on this podcast. She's a guest of mine back in the summertime, I believe it was, of 2020. And there are other people that I'm looking at as well to talk about these kinds of issues around and what we can really do. In the United States, there's the NVDH, NDVH, National Domestic Violence Hotline. The Twitter handle is N as in Nancy, V as in Victor. I keep transposing those, and I'm not dyslexic. Let me start again. The Twitter handle is NDVH, National Domestic Violence Hotline. That's their Twitter handle, NDVH. And you can contact them. I believe it's on Twitter, on their webpage, thehotline.org. And if you type that in, you should get access to them, and they have a phone number, and they have 24-hour a day, 7-day a week help. So if you know somebody, you or yourself, you or someone is going through all this kind of stuff, this is really important. I mean, you know, this is really important. So, you know, in fact, when you go to the website at thehotline.org, there's a security alert. At least it came up for me when I was just looking at the site. And it talks about how internet usage can be monitored, and certainly it is monitored. And it is impossible to erase completely. If you're concerned your internet usage might be monitored, call us at 800-799-SAFE, which is 800-799-7233, which is their hotline number. And it just talks about clearing your browser history after you visit the website. I mean, this is a really good point, by the way, because we are tracked, we are surveilled. I mean, that's not conspiracy hype or conspiracy talk. That is the truth. We've had the Patriot Act in the United States, and we've talked, and I don't want to go into that all now, but that was one of the principal documents that the Congress voted on, except for Barbara Lee, who said no to it, and maybe one or two others, but she may have been the only one who voted no on it. I think she was in the House, the only one to vote no. So, but the point, and great for her, Representative Barbara Lee in Oakland, California, across the bridge from here. in San Francisco. And let me tell you, by the way, she should be the mayor. She should be the senator in California right now, the junior senator. Maybe she will still run for Senate. I hope she does. But Patriot Act allows this. I mean, it allowed this. It helped allow it. The Telecommunications Act certainly didn't hurt. So this point about the hotline.org and this security stuff, yeah, you could have somebody, or you could know someone who's abusive toward you, who is tracking your every move online, your digital footprint. So please be careful. Please be careful. And let someone call for you. 800-799-7233. If you are someone who's going through some real struggles with domestic abuse or domestic violence. The hotline.org. And this applies to your phone too. If you've got a phone and you need to get some help and you're looking at this stuff on your phone, make sure you delete your browser history. Make sure you do. Please. I mean, this is, you might have someone checking your phone. Your abusive whomever, spouse, partner, husband, most likely male. There are women who do this, but it is overwhelmingly men. So if you've got this abusive man in your living quarters and he checks your phone and your this and your that, just want to say that to you. I mean, these are things that need to be said and they need to be spoken about, because we can't live in a world and pretend this doesn't happen. And not only that, we have to end this. We have to end this toxic masculinity. And I will be doing a show on this coming in the next couple of months or so. But there we have it on that. I just wanted to start there. But I do want to get to something different. Or maybe it's tied into what I've just been talking about for the last few minutes. What kind of person are you now? I mean, I've been doing these kinds of episodes like this over the last few weeks. A few weeks ago, I did an episode about how you start your day, what kind of day you begin with, some tips that I provided that may or may not have helped. They may have been utterly useless. They may have been absolutely useless. And, like I said at the time I did the episode, if it doesn't help, it doesn't help. If it's a complete waste of your time and you're doing something that works for you, keep doing what works for you. But I did this episode several weeks ago about meditation, the kinds of things you want to do to start your day off right. The kinds of things you want to do. If you're lying there in bed, you've just woken up, you've just opened your eyes. And I talked about this counting backwards and forwards, climbing the mental ladder, where you count backwards 10 to 1, right? So then you're kind of de-stressing even before you begin your day. It's kind of this anticipation, and maybe 10, 9, 8, 7. I told you about that, remember, if you listened a few weeks ago. And you get to number 1, it's like, you're anticipating liftoff of a rocket. But before you do that liftoff and you get to number 1 and you expect the liftoff, you've got to also count from 1 back up to 10. And you're mentally climbing that ladder in your mind when you count 1, 2, 3. You're literally going higher in the count, obviously, of numbers. But mentally, you're moving up every step. That's the way I view that. And in climbing back up that ladder, you are now covering your tracks from when you counted from 10 down to 1. And it's as if you're conquering these mental steps. I know it's probably conceptually difficult to see why that sounds like or feels like a conquering. But when you're lying there with the sleep in your eyes, having just awoken, I don't think it's a terrible thing to do, to count backwards from 10 to 1 and then forwards from 1 to 10. And then take a breath and just kind of survey the scene of your bedroom or wherever you sleep. If you're so fortunate to have a roof over your head, and if you can do this comfortably without someone, if you're living with someone violent, you really can't do this well, right? You can't do this well. I mean, You may be able to do it, but you may not feel very comfortable. So this is why I say what I say about this, is because some of this may work for some people, and whether you have someone violent in your household or not, it may not work for you. So anyway. But this is the thing I'm talking about. I've been doing these episodes. Another one was, what's your online persona? Is it, if you remember, those of you who've listened to this podcast more than once, if you remember, I did just maybe a week or two ago now, an episode on, are you the same person online as you are off? Or rather, is your online persona the same as your real life persona, the one you have off screen? And I cited that film from 2017 called Ingrid Goes West, which deals with this issue of your online personality. And again, please see that movie if you've not seen Ingrid Goes West, starring Aubrey Plaza and Elizabeth Olsen and O'Shea Jackson and several others, and Billy Magnuson, who's really quite memorable in this movie as well. Go watch that film. It's directed by, I believe it's Matt Spicer. He was also one of the co-writers of it. I believe that's his name. You've got to watch that movie. So I talked about that whole thing and identities, and you're putting a certain representation of yourself online that may or may not be true, may be real, may not be. And, people put avatars up that don't look like them. And some of that is due to protection, because you've got very violent people out here and online, and how awful they can be, especially if you're a woman dealing with this from men in particular, or if you're someone who's trans dealing with this, or someone who comes out as LGBT in general, again, this is just really tough. And I applaud very brave people who, and it's a shame to even have to call them brave, but, because we've got such a toxic masculine society and patriarchy, obviously. And so it's kind of sad to say brave, that you have to be brave to be who you are. But the reality is, right, there's some real world realities that happen for people who announce that they are trans, who announce that they are gay. Me as a straight person, I don't have to come out and say, oh, I'm straight. Right? And if you're straight listening to this, you don't have to make an announcement or come out and say, I'm straight. Right? Because you're living in this cisgendered, straight-oriented world. Right? That's what the society is, what the world, revolves around or predicates itself upon. It pushes that model. Right? But if you're someone who is trans, or you're gay, or you're fluid, gender fluid, or things of those, non-binary, it may not be the same. I don't know personally, but I know generally speaking that it's not the same for you, right? You're going through lots of different other things, a lot of other hurdles. And if you're black and you're trans, and if you're black and you're a woman, and if you're black and you're a woman and you're gay, if you're black and a woman, think about when you add those layers on, the intersectionalities that come, the challenges that come. I'm going to get into that in a future episode too. I know I'm waffling a bit today. I know when I'm waffling and when I'm not waffling. And I know when there's a lot of background noise and when there's not. But no, these are issues that I want to talk about. But I want to get back again, and I'm always going to get back to what my point is or where I'm going, which is I've done these episodes, and here's another one of them, really, which is, who are you now? Are you the same person now that you were 10 years ago? This Throwback Thursday and all. Are you the same person? And the answer to that can take on a million dimensions. And you might be tempted to ask me, well, Omar, what do you mean by the same person? Well, I think that's something you have to measure. I can't possibly define the parameters of that. I think there's so many of them. But I guess if I wanted to distill it down to something even more concrete and concise, it would be, do you think you are the same person? Have you changed very much in your approach to life, in your attitude about life, in your attitude about people, about your family members, your family, your that kind of thing? Are there things you are doing differently for you right now in 2021 that you weren't doing for yourself, specifically, for example, in 2011? I think, those are the kinds of things. And I think those are things to think about as we go through this brand new year. We are in almost the middle of February now already. This year is going to go by really quickly. At least it will for some of us. Because there are some of us, or even many of us, who still are feeling as if we are in 2020. And with a pandemic, you could certainly be forgiven for thinking in that way and feeling that way. But this is something that is a worry. Where are you in your own foundation? Where are you? Are you doing the kinds of things now in 2021 that you wanted to do, or had planned to do, or had envisioned a plan or set out a plan to do? Has it taken 10 years? Will it take longer? Have there been changes? I mean, I think that there are multiple yes answers, and there could be multiple no answers to that. This is about trying to discover who you are. I think the point of this episode, is to try to give yourself some kind of self-evaluation and try to grade yourself. I mean, maybe grade yourself sounds a little bit crude. Crude in the sense of, well, giving yourself a number or a letter. That sounds a little bit, what is this, But I think what I'm trying to say is you want to evaluate yourself and measure yourself, not against others, because I just don't think that's a good thing. And I know people do it. We all do it to a certain degree as human beings. We measure ourselves against someone else. And I've always maintained that that is such a losing strategy. To the extent that this is a strategy, it's terrible. We do it. It's a natural human thing. We want to keep up with the Joneses. We want to measure up against the Hatfields and the McCoys. Oh, actually, you don't want to measure up against them because they're always fighting. My whole point is that we are forever trying to measure up against someone or something or some standard in the culture and the society that we live in that tells us we've got to look like that or sound like this or be like them. And so there's all this cosmetic change that's done. Some of that might be just because we just want to look a little bit better, whatever better means for those who do this. Or some of it might be that we want to look like something or someone. And gosh, if I go down 7 different avenues here, I will never end the episode today, which I don't think is a good idea, and I don't think you want that either. I know I don't want that. And that seems to, the alarm bell in your head right now is he talking about women? I'm talking about everybody. Because this isn't about one gender. This is about people. Right? And there are all these ads that tell you, you've got to look like this. You've got to be like that. Because if you're not, you won't get this, that, or the other. So that's the kind of thing I think I'm getting at here But I think most importantly, I mean, do you think you're a different person? I mean, you remember people doing this on Twitter, if you're a Twitter person, and I am, at the Popcorn, REEL. Do you remember this? It still happens. People do those, here's me in 2010. And here's me in 2020. And you look at the two photos. Some of the contrasts are striking and really, wow, great. Others are like kind of, you've gone backwards, mate. I mean, that's how, and that's probably a little bit nasty. So I'm sorry, but you get what I mean. But it's what's behind the photos. Whether they look good or whether they don't look good, whether you get a good vibe from them or whether you don't. It's what's behind those photos. That is important. The heart of who you are, right, is important. Who you were in 2010 or 2011 and who you are in 2021. Or who you were just in 2020, just before this pandemic began, and who you ended up being at the end of 2020. Those are the key ingredients. I do want you, dear listener, and I do this myself actually, but I do want you, dear listener, to consider who you were in 2010, what you were doing in 2010, and who you are now in 2021. What were you doing in 2010, 2011? What kind of person were you then? And what kind of person are you now in 2021? It's a subject matter that I find to be fascinating because people can be I find people to be very fascinating and sometimes infuriating, but I find people to be fascinating. I'm fascinated by a number of things. And one of them is, yes, there's good people in the world and I love that. And thank goodness I know some of them and I know that there are and all of that and blah, blah, blah. But I'm actually fascinated by the not so good. Because I think, and I've done this, and I'm saying this on the basis of a lot of the films that I tend to look at. I look at all kinds of films as someone who's a film critic. And even as an attorney, when you interact with fellow attorneys and you get a sense of some of the people you interact with as good people, at least in the core. And then you can see why your profession gets such a bum rap, or actually a rap that it deserves by some of the people in your profession. This happens to every profession, right? Doctors, you name the profession, right? But you see why lawyers get anyway, I don't want to go down that road either. I'll tell you, you won't get to do anything today because I'm sure you'll get to do something today. But yeah, I don't want to take this episode down that direction either. But the whole point is, I'm fascinated by the kinds of things we do that aren't, I'm not saying that they're bad things, but I'm saying that expose our frailties. And so these movies, I did a recent, and some of you know this because you've listened and you've probably watched some of the videos that I did on this and the essay that I wrote on it. The Incident from 1967, which is a film I want everybody to see, even though I know there's some people who listen to this podcast who have told me they hate the film. And I completely understand why. someone would actually watch The Incident and absolutely hate it, because there's every good reason to, and even bad, reasons good or bad. There's really no such thing. You're interpreting the movie, you see it, and that's how it looks to you. That's what it is to you. Same thing with me, same thing with anybody. And so I'm actually on board with people who say they hate the movie, because I've said that you might hate that movie and that maybe some of you will hate it. What I think about the movie, and I like the movie, and I think it's an excellent film, because it exposes and deals with these varying degrees of frailty and ugly things in human beings, which this director, Larry Pierce, who directed The Incident, is showing us. But he's using the most disreputable people to show it to us, which is why this film is uncomfortable, which is why people hate it. Some people do. But that's just the tip of the iceberg with that. That kind of stuff fascinates me, though. The gray areas. Not the people who are just outlandishly evil and outrageously. I'm talking about the people who like to think that they are doing the right thing, but, you're really not. That's the kind of thing that I get. I love to analyze that kind of thing. And I've said this before. I could have been a sociologist or psychologist or something in another life. But I chose the law. So I guess it's not too late. I chose to be an attorney. I guess it's not too late to change professions. But look, all kidding aside, everybody, please, all kidding aside, dear listener, this thing about human behavior is incredible. It really is. And so that movie is one of those things for me that's a template. And that movie tracks that journey as well. What kind of person were you? Except that movie asked the question, and I'm not giving anything away here for those of you who actually do want to watch The Incident. It's definitely, I think it's streaming somewhere. It was recently shown in the United States on Turner Classic Movies, TCM, on Twitter @TCM. It was recently shown there, which is where I first saw it, actually. I also recently purchased the Blu-ray of it. And I don't know if that Blu-ray is still available, because at the time I purchased it, there was literally only one left. So... But you can check it out. You know where to go. There's many different places online. You could probably find this Blu-ray, The Incident, Blu-ray or DVD, but Blu-ray, which it's staggering. And I got to listen to the director talking about the process of making the film and all that. And the person interviewing him was good too. But there were some things that person, as good as he was, did not ask that I, yours truly, would have asked. Larry Pierce, who, God bless him, is 90 years of age, 90, living in the Bronx, New York. We still have some people over 90 who are still alive. Oh dear, I really put my foot in that because I probably just jinxed something, and I'm sorry. But I only say that because of what we've seen lately. All these people who passed away. Mary Wilson, who is not 90, but my God, I didn't even talk about her from the Supremes. Mary Wilson a couple of days ago, no longer with us anymore. Boy, I have to do an episode on that too, because Mary Wilson certainly merits for sure a separate episode, which I will be doing. I do want to make that announcement here, because she was one of a kind, and may she rest in power. Because we lost all these people, 90-year-olds, 90 plus, living long lives, and longevity is a good thing. Some people don't like longevity. Depends on what that is in. Longevity and what, we can talk about that for a while too. But Cloris Leachman and Cicely Tyson, and we had Christopher Plummer and John Chaney and Hank Aaron and Larry King, and I'm sure there's others that I've not mentioned, but these are some real heavyweights and giants, that we've lost these last few days and weeks. And, but this movie, and Larry Pierce is still alive, God bless him. I'm just, living in the Bronx where he was born and raised and grew up. And, he talks about this movie like a New Yorker because it's set in New York. And this movie asks, what kind of person were you? But not in the 10-year sense that I'm asking it. And I could have said 20 years, but I decided on 10 years. Are you the same person now that you were 10 years ago? Or have you changed, and how much have you changed? If so, this movie asks that question in a matter of a 45-minute subway ride in the New York City subway. Are you the same person? Are you the same person at the start of this 45-minute train ride? As are you the same person at the end of this train ride as you were at the start of it? I mean, it's in a microcosm. It's in a really short bit of time that feels like forever. So that's my plug for the incident. But it's also tied into what I'm asking today. Are you the same person that you were 10 years ago? Think about that. Think about what the answer is. Think about what the answer isn't. Think about what you need to do to make that change in yourself. See that change in yourself. Be that change in yourself. These personal internal explorations are always the most difficult, because you and I can sit all day long and talk about others and what they've done, how they've grown or not grown, right? We can all do that. But what if it's about us? How do we move forward with that? That's what I would love to leave you with here. Welcome back. There was so much going on at the impeachment trial yesterday, and I guess yesterday, which was Wednesday, February 10th, so much food for thought, I suppose. It was really day one. I know it's the second day of proceedings, I think is probably the best way to put it, because the first day was about presenting arguments for the constitutionality of even having the trial continue on, since Donald Trump, of course, is no longer in the White House, thank God. But I assure you, he's plotting and planning from Mar-a-Lago. And so are others. It ain't just him by himself. It is not just him by himself. But the constitutionality was argued on on Tuesday. The vote was held by the Senate. The Senate voted 56 to 44. 6 Republican senators. I had said 3 at the time, but it was 6. So I stand corrected and apologize. The 6 I can try to name: Murkowski, Collins, Sass, Cassidy. I think I said Murkowski. Yeah, Murkowski, Collins, Sass, Cassidy, Romney, and one other person who escapes me. Can't remember the name. I apologize. I also want to make a quick correction as well. There were actually 3 female senators I was not able to name. I named, I guess, 20 or 21 of the 24 or so who were there in the United States Senate. Remember that episode I did earlier this week when I talked about female empowerment? I had scheduled to have Dr. OK on with me. It turned out, by the way, remember I apologized on the air, and I still apologize for that, take responsibility for misreading the time and getting the time wrong. Turned out Dr. OK herself couldn't make it, so we both. Yeah, isn't that something? Doesn't absolve me of the fact that I still got the time wrong, but it's just, would you say a happy accident? I don't know if you'd use that language, But you get the idea, right? These things happen in life. Sometimes both parties either are busy or one, in my case, misread the time, put down the wrong time. It happens. It happens. So we are going to, by the way, I want to quickly say, we are going to have that conversation, she and I, coming up in the next few weeks. So stay tuned for that. I'll talk about that as it gets closer, as we get closer. But I want to say the 3 female senators I didn't name in the United States Senate, 3 of them, and I was really kicking myself on at least 2 of these. One of them is Cortez Masto, and I couldn't believe I didn't remember her. Cortez Masto, and I don't remember her first name. Oh gosh, Senator Cortez Masto. Oh dear, how did I not remember that? And also, how did I not remember her? I also didn't remember Tammy Baldwin, Senator Baldwin out of Wisconsin. I couldn't believe I didn't get her name either. Oh gosh, oh dear. Not good, not good, not good. I mean, you're slipping. Seriously, I can't believe I didn't remember those 2. And there was another one. I've forgotten, of course. There was a third. And I've forgotten again. Oh, dear, when you get older. It's not COVID brain, that's an excuse. It should get older. That's the truth. Come on. Oh, it's COVID brain. Come on. It might be, but no, it's not. It's not. It's going to happen to all of us if we're fortunate enough to get older. Knock on wood. Because, there are a lot of us out here, black folk and brown folk, who don't get to even complain or talk about memory loss or things like that because they don't get to be older because the police end their lives. That kind of thing. Right? So, yeah, I that's something also to be considering and thinking about. There's 3 of them. There was a third person, a third senator. Oh, dear. And I was thinking about this yesterday. And I said, okay, tomorrow I'm going to do this and I'm going to remember. And I got 2 of them. 2 out of 3 ain't bad, but that is not good enough. That's only 66%, which is just about almost the amount of percentage of people in the Senate that's required. It's a 66, 2/3 majority of the Senate, really 2/3 plus 1. 67 senators must vote to convict Donald Trump. And that first full day, really, of arguments, the first day of arguments for the House managers, who have 16 total hours, as do the defense. 8 hours yesterday, 8 hours going on right now on February 11th, if you're listening to this on the 11th of February 2021, to make their case. And I think the House impeachment managers yesterday were compelling. But again, it's not like they had to work that. I mean, they worked extremely hard to put all this together, and their aides and staffers, I get it. They did all the legwork, but look, of course, these folks themselves did the legwork and worked hard as well. But give me a break. I mean, this video footage was everywhere, and you didn't have to search far for it. But my point is that all of the House impeachment managers were excellent, were brilliant yesterday. The presentation of their arguments was unassailable. And particularly Delegate Stacey Plaskett, Representative Jean Neguse, I believe is his name. They were both superb. Particularly Representative Plaskett, delegate out of the Virgin Islands. She was tremendous yesterday. Madeline Dean, the representative there out of Massachusetts, although she did a very good job as well. And then you had the rest of the impeachment managers, Ted Lieu and Joaquin Castro, I thought was particularly effective. And, of course, the lead impeachment manager, Jamie Raskin. All of them did a really good job yesterday. And they showed the footage, the video, this, that, the other. I am going to put in a small clip of Representative Neguse out of Colorado as he was talking about some of the things that he was talking about. I mean, it was some of the video very difficult to watch. I chose to turn away from it because, there's lots of other things going on, and listening to it was better than watching it.
When he saw firsthand the violence that his conduct was creating, he didn't stop it. He didn't condemn the violence. He incited it further. And he got more specific. He didn't just tell them to fight like hell. He told them how, where, and when. He made sure they had advance notice, 18 days advance notice. He sent his save the date for January 6th. He told them to march to the Capitol and fight like hell. On January 6th, as Lead Manager Raskin said, the exact same day that we were certifying the election results. What time was that rally scheduled for? The exact same time that this chamber was certifying the election results in joint session.
Mitt Romney owes Eugene Goodman his life, quite frankly, pretty much to it. Because Eugene Goodman saved his life. That's one of the things we really found out yesterday too, among other things. How close these terrorists were to actually murdering, actually killing United States senators and congresspersons. They were literally less than 30 seconds away. In some cases, there was this dramatic video of now majority, then minority leader, but now majority leader Chuck Schumer, and one of his bodyguards who had his gun out, literally, and then they ran down this tunnel, and then within seconds they turned around again. The security camera caught them. Very dramatic. These folks had breached this place, and they were getting directions from someone, and that's what I really want to get to for these next few short minutes, because Mitt Romney, again, there's video footage of that. They showed that yesterday. Mitt Romney running the other way after being told by our running Eugene Goodman, he's the brother who held off all these violent, terroristic white men who were charging at him. He diverted them up some steps, and if some of them had said, hey, look, let's go this way, it would have been curtains for people in that Senate chamber, many of whom were sitting listening to John DeGoose and Stacey Plaskett and Jamie Raskin and Madeline Dean and Ted Lieu and Joaquin Castro, all representatives, House impeachment managers. They were all doing this, and they were all sitting in the chamber, the senators, listening, and they all experienced what was being said and shown. Josh Hawley, the traitor, oh, I need to go on the balcony to get a better view. No, you just don't want reporters to observe your every move because you are a traitor, like Ted Cruz is. And then Rick Scott, oh, I think this is a waste of time. Well, I guess you think the American people are a waste of time, Rick Scott of Florida, not to be confused with Tim Scott of South Carolina, because as much as I disagree with Senator Scott of South Carolina, he wouldn't say anything as stupid as that. He says some really backwards ass things, but not that. I would say backwards ass things, but I won't say that. Oh, I know Meatloaf would never sing it that way. But you know what I mean. I mean, you've got people with utter contempt. And that's what I want to get to, the system. See, for all the excellent presentation yesterday and today that you're going to be watching, or you are already watching it, or you have already watched it, no one is talking about the system. Nobody. And don't tell me that, well, that's because it's in a subsequent investigation. And I know there is an ongoing investigation. But how much of that investigation is going to talk about the system? This was a systemic terrorist attack. And it was an attack that was an inside job. If it's a systemic attack, by its very nature, it's an inside job. No way. This is no conspiracy talk. This is no loose change documentary, although that documentary about 9/11 is an interesting one to watch. And I'm not completely poo-pooing it, but I'm not, championing it either. It's something to look at. Because there are unanswered questions about September 11th, 2001. And by the way, we're coming up on the 20-year commemoration of that horrible day in the United States. But we just barely a month plus past what happened in January of this year. This terrorist attack. That could not have happened. That breach of the Capitol could not have been that easy. And it could not have happened. It couldn't be so easy except for people allowed it. People were told to stand down. Any of the Capitol Police who happened to be Trump supporters, some of them, were waving these folks in. Come on in. That's the video that I would love the House impeachment managers to show if they haven't already done so. Maybe they will by the time you get to listen to this episode. But I want to see that video. Show me that video of these Capitol Police waving people in. Come on in. These Capitol Police posing for pictures. I know the trial's about Donald Trump. I mean, that's the argument that will get thrown back at me, which is, well, this is about Donald Trump and his incitement. Well, of course it is. Of course it is, because it's an impeachment trial, and the article of impeachment that he's being tried for is, of course, incitement to insurrection, which is exactly what he did. And it was laid out so perfectly yesterday. Ironclad, unimpeachable, to pardon the pun there. They were really good yesterday. But they were so good that that's what I was left with. And it's a question that I've talked about before. The system. It's that thing, right? The system. It barks like that dog that you probably just heard back in the background there. Not my dog. I don't have a dog. But the point is, I do have a dog in this fight, though. And this is this system thing, right? That we are isolating it to Donald Trump. And yes, in an impeachment trial, it's one person on trial. But the system's really on trial, isn't it? Or is it not? As I said before in prior episodes, the system will never put itself on trial. I mean, this is important. Because, sure, yes, these people were so fascistic and so cult-like, so Jim Jones-like. They would have killed people in their own families. Seriously. If people in their own families were blocking the U.S. Capitol, they would have absolutely killed them. This is how fevered and how much of a frenzy that Donald J. Trump whipped his own supporters up into. Seriously, they would absolutely have, they would have got rid of their own family members. And I know that's a horrible thing to even verbalize, but you know, and I know that that's the truth. And it's great that there were some people at home who actually saw family members and called them. There's a young white woman, I forgot, she was 17, 18. She's 17, 18 years old. And she called the cops on her mother and someone else in her family, grandfather or something, whatever, uncle, whomever. And they got arrested. And that woman, she ended up being punched because she, I think, threatened one of the security guards. And that black woman said, "What?" I think what happened was that this white woman tried to take the security guard's phone, tried to steal her cell phone. And she's defending herself, so she's to get the hell away from me. Plus, she's got no mask on either, this particular white woman. And so the black woman, who's the security guard, kapow! Literally, in your face, sucker. And no, I'm not glorifying the violence. It's better me describe it than you watch it, because then the blood comes. But what would come? What else would come from that, right? This woman is grabbing her phone, her personal phone, and she wants to make sure that the woman never grabs it again or never tries to. And I think the woman may have broke the woman's nose. But these people were so fevered, they would have done anything if even their family members were in front of guarding that place. But the point is, the system, come on. As these House impeachment managers said yesterday, this stuff was known for 18 days that there was going to be a January 6th event, rally, riot. No, not riot, terror attack. It's basically the functional equivalent. All these tweets and things that Trump was putting out. Thank God he doesn't have a Twitter account anymore, by the way. But all these things he was putting out in late December is the functional equivalent of the PDB of August 6, 2001. Bin Laden determined to strike inside the U.S. Well, Trump determined to strike inside the U.S. August 6, 2001, January 6, 2021. Come on, all those tweets and, oh, it's going to be wild, it's going to be big, it's going to be wild. Get ready for January 6th. I mean, that was the blooming PDB, literally, on Twitter. I mean, this guy fired people on Twitter. He said, oh, trans people can't serve in the military. I hereby declare. He put that on a blooming tweet. And this was his presidential daily briefing, which he never really read. And he's not a president. And he said, January 6th, look out, get ready. Tweeting all that. Hey, come on. That was it. He puts it in your face. He's been doing that for 50 years. Oh, we couldn't foresee that Donald Trump was going to be violent. What about May 1st, 1989? $50,000, $80,000 spent on ads. Full-page ads in newspapers like the USA Today, the New York Times, the Daily News, and whatever else. Bring back the death penalty. Bring back our police. Whoa. And by the way, at least 4 police officers were killed. I think 3 of them have took their lives. That's what I've been hearing from some good people on Twitter, Rosanna Arquette. And others who is saying this, 3 police officers now have taken their lives. And by the way, there was a police officer, and I must mention this, Roland Martin, thank you very much for this. On Roland Martin Unfiltered this week, he told the story of a police officer, a black deputy, who ended his own life, took his own life, because he was fed up. And it had nothing to do with January the 6th. This was something about the culture of policing and the institutional and systemic racism, speaking of systems. And this brother had enough. He was fed up. He loved his job, but he was growing increasingly despondent and dissatisfied with the way that the police that he worked with treated black people, treated people who didn't look like them, and particularly black folk, and the insults and the evils that he saw. And he just had enough. Nobody cared. It seemed as if he was the only one. He'd served with distinction and honor, and he just couldn't take it anymore. And so he ended his life. He had made a series of social media posts. And then he had ended his life, I think, in front of his employees. And I apologize for the distressing nature and descriptive nature of this, which is why I said earlier, we need to get help, folks. Counseling, mental health counseling, all kinds of things we need. We need to be talking about mental health. We need to be talking about this, right? And so he went back to work, maybe a few days after those videos were aired, where he's just talking. And you can go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com, I think, about that, and you can search for it. And these videos, it's him talking about all the hurt, all this indifference, and these police don't care, and he's a cop himself. And then he went to work and ended his life in front of his colleagues. So you have police officers who are ending their lives. You have police officers who are ending the lives of black people and brown people in this country. And you have other police officers who are ending their own lives. The system must not only change, it must be dismantled, because it's the system that's responsible for all of this. And I'm not this communistic whatever, I'm just talking about this from the real world perspective. You can all see this. Look at Frank Serpico back in the day. And that was made into a movie in 1972 or 3. Al Pacino as Frank Serpico, who's still alive as well. Bless his heart. A cop who is trying to fight against all this evil in the department, and he almost paid for it with his life. I mean, this stuff is really serious stuff. And I know it doesn't make for happy listening, but I am not the happy clappy one when it comes to this. I mean, like I say, I have fun and I laugh and all the good stuff. Don't get me wrong. And know how to have fun. Don't get me wrong. But these subjects, if you're coming here we had the wonderful, lovely, amazing, talented, brilliant Fazana on. I hope you enjoyed that episode if you listened to it yesterday. Yesterday's episode of this podcast. 2 Brits having a laugh, and we did have a laugh, and we spoke about some serious things too. We'll have a few more of those kinds of things. So that's not going to be a complete one-off at all. But again, there's full-time stuff where people have, the comedy going, and there's plenty of podcasts where that happens. Some of those are good ones. Some of them are just very vacuous, in my opinion, and it just keeps you in this perpetual state of fantasy, which is maybe what people want, people need in these grim times. Escapism. We love to escape from the truth, don't we? Don't we? And the country does, really. America does, which is the problem, which is why we have this impeachment trial, right? Because if we confronted the history of America, we probably wouldn't have had what happened on January 6th, 2021. I could go on. The system will go on too. But what are we doing to try to change, contour, or dismantle it? Because it ain't working for 99% of us. Well, in 90% of us. Oh, goodness me. Well. I think I'll leave it there. By the way, I do want to say one thing. Who is this?
The question of having to deal with what is unspoken by the subjugated, what is never said to the master. Of having to deal with this reality was a very remote possibility. It was in no one's mind. When I was growing up, I was taught in American history books that Africa had no history, and neither did I. That I was a savage, about whom the less said the better, who had been saved by Europe and brought to America. And of course, I believed it. I didn't have much choice. Those are the only books there were. Everyone else seemed to agree. If you walk out of Harlem, ride out of Harlem, downtown, the world agrees. What you see is much bigger, cleaner, whiter, richer, safer than where you are. They collect the garbage. People obviously can pay their life insurance. The children look happy, safe. You're not. And you go back home. And it would seem then, of course, that it's an act of God, that this is true, that you belong where white people have put you.
Who was that? Who was that? If you can tell me, tell me. on Twitter at the Popcorn REEL. And if you'd like, email politicratpod@gmail.com. And here's the book recommendation. Today's book recommendation: The New Jim Crow. Michelle Alexander. Great book. Oh, what a great book. That is a great book. And I cannot tell you how important that book is. It's one of the great books that we have over these last few years. Honestly, The New Jim Crow. It's a highly, highly recommended book by yours truly. Well, it's not. It's recommended by me. I didn't write it. But Michelle Alexander did. And for that, I am very grateful and profoundly thankful. The one and only brilliant Professor Michelle Alexander, social commentator, writer, author. She's just a fantastic person. Goodness, I would love to have her on this show because this podcast, because then we could have a really good conversation about some of the things in the world that she wants to talk about. The New Jim Crow. That's the book recommendation. Last but not least, I will be appearing on Zoom on Friday, February the 12th. That's tomorrow. My goodness. Friday, February 12th, 2021. On Zoom, I will be guest hosting and moderating a conversation about the documentary directed by Frida Lee Mock called Anita, Speaking Truth to Power. It's about Professor Anita Hill and the persecution she faced back in 1991 during the Clarence Thomas Supreme Court confirmation hearings in the United States Senate. You will not want to miss this conversation. It's tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Pacific U.S. time, 9 p.m. Eastern U.S. time. On Zoom, you can register right now to join the conversation and be a part of it. I have and will include a link to the liner notes of this episode. And you can go to milibrary.org, I believe, but I'm going to include a link where you can register directly, take you straight to the place that you have to do this so you don't have to go through all this stuff. But please, you will not want to miss this. Yours truly, guest hosting for the Mechanics Institute in San Francisco via Zoom on Friday, February 12th, 2021, as I lead a discussion about Frida Lee Mock's great documentary from 2013. It's called Anita, Speaking Truth to Power. So join me tomorrow, please. It'd be great to have you here to participate via Zoom. Thank you very much for listening to this edition of The Politicrat. I'm Omar Moore.